What's going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. We're back. We're live. I know last week was a pre-tape, but with the holiday hustle and bustle, we have to facilitate a pre-tape. But we all know whose fault that is. So
worked out today.
Yes, but today it worked out. Yes, we're back live, and as ever, co-piloting this thing with me is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on, everybody?
Yes, it's your maybe third favorite live stream podcast of the week. I don't know. At best,
Third favorite?
I don't know the people. Like the people, we might not be the first favorite. I'm just being realistic.
Well, okay, I can see that. We're not be the favorites, but I thought you were gonna say looking at Robert's your third favorite host. It was like we only have 3 people, Andy.
Oh. No, just in terms of weekly live stream podcasts. I know you all have your options.
True.
But,
I mean, there's some other live streams that I enjoy watching.
Yeah, as do I, and but I mean, not to be like humble brag or anything, or being self-deprecating. I'm just being realistic. We might not be your favorite, but I would like to think we're at least in the top 3.
I certainly hope that too.
Yeah. Yes. So with all that being said, let's get this conversation started. And yes, to get things started, I guess we could talk about our Thanksgivings.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with you, Andy. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was real good. I recapped it in last week's episode, but what was it? This year, a lot of my family, or my aunt who usually hosts, she wasn't feeling up to hosting this year, so we didn't have a large, extended family gathering, which prompted other members of my extended family to make other plans for Thanksgiving, and so me and my sisters and one of my uncles were on our own for Thanksgiving, and so we made the best of it, and we still cooked the turkey and all the sides and all that good stuff, and it was a good time. Nice.
You have the standard traditional Thanksgiving type of food.
Yes. Turkey stuffing, green beans. No mashed potatoes this year.
Oh, Jesus! You had no mashed potatoes?
Well, I mean, it was just the 4 of us, and so.
I see.
It's like plus who needs another complex carbohydrate on the table to put you into food coma.
True. Now, are green beans is that your normal vegetable of choice for Thanksgiving?
No, that one was special because it was just at my house or at my family's house, because usually that's not on when we have it with our Thanksgiving with the extended family, that's usually not on the menu.
I see. What is your normal vegetable of choice for Thanksgiving?
None.
Well, I think there are certain ones that do go well with Thanksgiving dinner. I personally corn for one is one I like, and I also like peas.
Okay. For some reason I like vegetables, at least the leafy green ones. don't really come to mind when I think about my family's Thanksgiving meal.
Hmm.
I mean, we do have a salad, but it's just kind of like your standard like spring mix, spring green mix or whatever. Nothing too spectacular. And as far as corn goes, I think we do have corn. Oh, cream corn. That's right. Our family, we at least when we have the big get together with extended family and such, we have to have cream corn.
Yeah. Um, yeah. What did I do? So I had. We didn't do our. Well, we don't really have a normal Thanksgiving anymore.
Hmm.
It's just kind of this year we were supposed to have prime rib. My mom makes a really good prime rib, and but then my aunt and my cousin came over and ruined that plan. So
Hmm.
we went with more of a kind of traditional Thanksgiving dinner. So we had ham, turkey, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, stuffing, cranberries. Got to have cranberries, and not the canned cranberry, like with the ridges, real cranberries. And then what else? Pumpkin pie. We had corn. We had peas. Um, and yeah, it was really good.
Mm.
The well now the uh, as far as like the dinner conversation went, I don't think I talked at all,
Hmm.
to be honest. Yeah, like I love my family. Like my parents, like if it was just me and my parents, I think we would
Hmm.
have had a really good time. My aunt and my cousin are very odd. My aunt is like my cousin is one thing. Like she's kind of like the typical like ditzy kind of interesting girl.
Hmm.
My aunt is kind of like what you would expect a Hillary Clinton supporter to be like, and she is.
Hmm.
So yeah, she's kind of like that dry, cold, psychologist.
Like
Yeah, no,
kind of
it's
going interesting, and they make little notes.
exactly that is my aunt,
Uh
and my dad and my aunt could not be any different from one another.
huh.
Um, and yeah, so but it's like I mean, I love them. Like they're really it's like they're family. It's the only
Right.
family you have, so you gotta love them despite all their just
I don't
craziness.
know. Do you though?
Yeah, see, here's see, people don't realize that loving someone and liking someone are completely different things. You
This
can
is
love
true.
someone but
This is
don't
true.
like to be around them.
Right. Fair
Um,
point.
I know, like some people are like, no, that doesn't, no, you have to like, if you love them, you like them too. It's like I don't know, I don't,
No,
I
yeah, I think at least there I'm with you because there is a distinction because yeah because loving someone you can love someone that's 3,000 miles away, right?
right,
But you have to like them to be in the same room with them for an extended period of time.
true,
And I think that's how I typically differentiate between like and love. Because it's like, yeah, you can love someone from anywhere. It's you can love someone from halfway around the world, but do you like them enough to be able to be in the same room together for an extended period of time?
right, exactly. I mean, obviously, like I spend a lot of my time with you and James and all the guys on the podcast, and even the people that we bring on. It's like, yeah, I like them. That's why we're bringing them on.
Right.
And I like, and with you guys, obviously, we're doing the podcast together, so we have to at least like each other.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like we've gotten very very close since, especially since starting this.
Mm-hmm.
We've had our hiccups and our ups and downs, but um, yeah. You know, it's like we're becoming brothers in sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
no,
the
it's
brothers in that kind of like from another mother kind of
exactly. I
way.
mean, hell, we're born on the same day, just a couple years apart.
That's true. This is true. It was interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, then let me ask you. I don't think I asked you for your take on this, but what do you think of, the like the day or even the days before Thanksgiving when people have, what is known as Friendsgiving?
What? I've never heard of
You,
this.
you never heard of it?
No.
Okay. Well. Okay. Friendsgiving is
Because see,
basically thanks. It's like Thanksgiving dinner, but with like I guess what you would consider like your closest or bestest friends that you're not gonna that you guys want to effectively that's the Thanksgiving that you want to be at, but you put
right,
that
right.
on so you could somehow so you can somehow tolerate the Thanksgiving that you're gonna have with like your blood family.
I get. It's funny because we haven't had like a traditional family Thanksgiving probably since I graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
And since that time, either I've missed Thanksgiving, whether it be like my time in the military, or like last year I worked all day on
Mm.
Thanksgiving, so I didn't really have a Thanksgiving. And so like Thanksgiving, I've had a mixture of family and friends get to, and we would do. So I never had a separate friendsgiving per se.
Mm.
I've always just like, hey, if you don't have anywhere to go and you want to have good food and hang out, why don't you just come to Thanksgiving with me? And that's kind of how it's gone.
Right. Yeah, it's like this recent phenomenon, where really close friends who who just want to do a Thanksgiving, with each other, before they go off into like do their family things, and it may, I might have painted it as something, where like they hate their families or whatever, but it's just something nice to do with like really close friends, especially like
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys
No,
both, if they have obligations to go and do like family stuff, then this is just like an added bonus to Thanksgiving.
yeah, no, I would agree with that. Like, no, I have nothing against that. I think it's good to do something with your friends as well,
Mm-hmm.
because especially if you're that close to them, I mean, they essentially become your family too.
Right.
But yeah, I've just always kind of included a lot of my friends in Thanksgiving with me
Mm-hmm.
at times. So yeah, I didn't know that there was a whole separate thing that people did.
Yeah, it's a thing, bro. It's a thing.
All right, well now I know. And knowledge is power.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe next year we'll do a Friendsgiving.
Maybe we should. I think that
Maybe
would
we
be
should.
fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
We could do like go to like the honey baked ham store or whatever, like just get have everyone bring a bunch of stuff, or whatever. But yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, that'd be
Do
cool.
a do some behind the scenes uh podcast stuff.
Yeah, like we could do Circle of Jerks Thanksgiving.
Oh, you know what? Let's do that. I think we should do that for next
Yeah,
year.
choke the turkey.
There we go.
There.
And we'll just make it like one of my off days, and we'll just that during that week, and we'll just
Mm-hmm.
we'll make it happen.
Yeah, and we could have people that been on the podcast and
Oh, that
or
would be.
yeah.
I think that would be. Yeah, that would be awesome. I
Yeah, I
think we
mean,
should
seeing
definitely
as
do
that
that.
we haven't had like that many guests on, like, I mean, right now, I mean, who knows, like, how many guests we're gonna have. Well, maybe we should limit it to like repeat guests.
So Dan would be there.
Yeah, Dan would be there. Well, Dan has
Right,
really only
Natalie.
been the only repeat guest.
Well, Matt Wade's been on a few times.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Oh, yeah, Matt Wade and yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I mean, Dancing Jason, if he,
Oh yeah, if he so chooses, yes.
if he gets off his duff.
I know. I keep it like times when like we're recording, especially on Sunday. Like I'm always like saying, "Hey, come out and you could." Like you don't even have to be on camera. You can just come and chill.
Yeah,
But he always turns me down.
I haven't seen that guy in forever.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's too good for us or whatever. But
because I honestly, there's stuff that like I wish that he would come on and like I think would be interesting for that stuff that he's interested in to share.
Yeah, because he has a very interesting perspective. And I mean,
I think it would be good to have him on.
Yeah, because I'm not going to share like exactly what happened, but recently, me and him got into like a little bit of a debate over this thing that happened in the news. And
you were telling me about that.
Yeah, and he was coming at it at a very specific. I mean, to his credit, I think he was coming at it at too hyper a specific point of or perspective to like which
and not seeing the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of gave him blinders. But even still, I still value his perspective and his take on things. So.
Yeah, but no, I would love to have him on as like him being the guest. To
so we can interview. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think he's a very intelligent guy. He knows a lot about a lot of stuff, and I think we tend to have like a lot of fun with him. And it's just I don't know, like I know he has a lot going on in his life too. So but he kind of keeps it hidden somewhat.
Yeah, he keeps it close to he's someone that plays it close to the vest.
I understand that. Like it's not our business, but it's like we're not gonna like hate on him or anything or judge him. It's like, hey, we just want to.
Yeah, because like even if he doesn't come on like the podcast, he can at least like come and like hang out and and if he like decided to jump in on the conversation, it's like it's not like we're gonna say no, you had your chance.
He could be like with when Eric and Sarah came on, Nam Fam Bam. You have.
It could be like one of the like the kids,
like the kids,
like one of their sons
playing games.
Yeah,
in the corner.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so you heard it here, folks. Be on the lookout for next year.
Yeah, well, we should start planning that maybe around the summer, and we can kind of maybe get something. As far as like a food list and what we
roster of people who's come on,
because we'll have more guests by next year too, so we might have
well, like I mean, if we're gonna like
we'll do repeat guests.
We'll try to do repeat guests just so we can fill out the roster.
But I think that'll keep the list low. I mean, we'll probably have
exactly. And plus,
we'll have Blair on, we'll have Dan on.
But I mean, are we gonna do this more? Will we do? I mean, I guess we don't have to talk about this right now since we're in the middle of the show. But we do this like more like podcast style, or will we do this more like a vlog? Where we're just walking around with the camera and talking and.
I think a vlog would be kind of a better way to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm figuring too. Because plus we don't have. I mean, we have like a lot of mics for for a podcast. We have a lot of mics.
We have 6.
Yeah, we have 6. I mean, we don't always use 6, but if ever a day that comes that we have like 6 people, we have 3 extra guests, then we're ready. We're ready.
I was gonna. The funny thing, if we ever use 6, I was gonna make the this really dumb reference that everyone's gonna make fun of me for. But it's like in the Golden Girls, how when they're in the kitchen, not all 4 of them are never sitting at the table. There's always like one sitting off like on the edge, and it's because so it's kind of like how if we end up using all 6 mics, it's like there's always going to be that one person off in the corner with the microphone.
Yeah. Or they'll just have to sit next to you, Rob.
I mean, that's a seat of honor right there.
Okay, okay, oh, okay, Massa. Whatever you say,
Hey,
Massa.
that's my show, so that's why it's a seat of honor.
Hey, it's all of our shows. All right, you're just the de facto. You're just the de facto.
Well, that's right. My show is on hiatus right now.
Yeah, your show's on hiatus.
It's coming back though. I'm working on something. I'm still working on it, but I got some. That way, we'll have a bunch of episodes that like be done all at once, so we can kind of do that. So, but anyways, so yeah, so I think that would be a fun idea. So there we go. Thanks. Our Thanksgivings were good, and now we have future Thanksgiving plans.
There you go.
Podsgiving.
Podsgiving. Ah. Yeah, I like that. All right, Podsgiving. TM to us. No one else can use it.
Yeah. Pending.
Podsgiving. I like that. All right. I guess. Well, let's talk. Let's get into, since we're just getting off of Thanksgiving. Let's talk about the small news story before I go into my interview and then the movie review.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you introduce the story to us, Andy?
Yeah. So recently, there was a group of young black men who went into Chipotle and they were refused service. And there's actually a video from one of the gentlemen. And the Chipotle. Did I mention that the restaurant was Chipotle?
I think you did.
Okay.
But if not, now we know.
Okay. Yes. So they walk into a Chipotle and the worker behind the counter seemed acting pretty rude to them, saying like, oh, you can't get anything until you pay, which got them outraged and like, oh, why are you treating us differently? Why are you treating us differently? And then there was a woman like in front of them in the line, and then like they kind of like bring her into it. It's like, oh, did you pay before you ordered or whatever? And so they put and then one of them uploaded the video up within Twitter, and they tagged the Chipotle Twitter account, and Chipotle the corporate office, I think, in a very knee-jerk reaction, terminated the manager of that Chipotle. And it wasn't until later that they found all this other information about that particular group of gentlemen who came in, and I guess it wasn't their first time, dine and dashing, as it were. They also, and as great scholars and geniuses that they are, they admitted to have stealing other things from that Chipotle, particularly a bottle of Tabasco. And
they posted on their their Twitter and all that on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking idiots.
And and so they posted onto their Twitter, but there was all this other information, all this other time they're like, oh, we should go to a different Chipotle, or we should go to a different restaurant because I think they're catching, getting wise that we're dine and dashing or whatever.
Right.
And so in light of this new evidence, Chipotle offered that woman her job back.
I told them they could. I tell them they could go pound sand, to be honest.
Yeah, no, but she was a little bit more magnanimous, and I think she did take the job back. But I think I also heard that she did.
She's a bigger person than me.
What was that?
Well, she's a much bigger person than me, because I would have told them where they could shove that job.
Right, and I heard that other employer companies. This anecdotally, I don't know if it's confirmed or not, but I heard anecdotally that other companies were offering this young woman a job. But I do believe she did take the job back at Chipotle. And
Yeah.
it was kind of, and the reason why we're talking about this right directly after the Thanksgiving uh, talk was, because if you went onto their Twitter account, I don't know if it's still up or not. I'm sure someone archived it, but you can see just the entitlement, from those, four men. I forget, I don't, what was it for? From those young
I knew it was more
gentlemen.
than one person. It was a couple. It was at least a couple of them.
Yeah, yeah. You could just see like the entitlement in like their voices saying, demanding service, and then when they didn't get their way, they had to drag in like all these other people and be like, oh, did you pay for, miss, did you pay for your food before, and da 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 da. It's like, well, and just like them admitting to dining and dashing at this specific Chipotle restaurant, and then also like stealing from them, like I mean, it may seem petty and trivial, but like a bottle of Tabasco is like, are you are you a fucking child? Are you a fucking child that you have to do these kind of things? And of course, in the video, they try to paint themselves, or pass themselves off as like the aggrieved victim in all this.
Right.
But there's a history. There's a history, and just this sense of entitlement and just ingratitude. Because it's like
It wasn't some
they're not entitled
arbitrary
to
like
this. They're not entitled to the food. They're not entitled to the service.
right. And it wasn't just some arbitrary. It's like, oh, I don't like black people, so I'm
Yeah,
going
it
to
wasn't like,
discriminate
yeah,
against them.
again, exactly. It was specific to this group of young men. It
Because they
wasn't
have a
like,
history of stealing from that
exactly, yeah.
franchise
This was, yeah, this was,
at that particular location, and this person works there nearly every day and knows what goes on.
yeah. I mean,
And
she was a manager. She was a manager, so she knew what was going on.
yeah, and it's like the thing is you have I mean this reminds me of the Starbucks situation a number of months ago with the same thing.
Right.
And it's like, no, jumping to this narrative that, oh, the person's racist and bigoted and all these horrible things, like, you know what? That's probably not the answer. There's not all this like deep-seated racism or hate. A lot of times it's because those particular people are acting like huge jackasses or doing the wrong thing, and this person that works there all the time knows the history. And of course, and because of that, they're going to get treated differently. If you're not following the rules, you're going out of your way to either steal or be a jackass. And honestly, like, they're saving Chipotle or whatever company they're working for money by doing that. And it's just the fact that the pitchfork mob, and they said, oh, we went into it and we fired this person. Well, they didn't do any research. They didn't actually investigate anything because, this person, I don't know how long she was working there, but it's like, they're just like, oh, well, we're not even going to like look into it. We're just going to fire the person.
Right. Well, I mean, that gets to another point of mine. Like, Chipotle didn't stand by their employees.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened? Employers, expect or demand loyalty from their employees, but what about what about the inverse? Where's the loyalty from the employer? It's the Chipotle shouldn't have quickly reacted to this, and be like, and just kind of like kicked her out of the car, while it was moving. They should have been like, hey, you know what, we're gonna investigate this. And if the employee in question was guilty of prejudice or bigotry or whatever, then she's going to be let go. That's all they had to say.
Right.
That's all they have to say.
At least then it's like if you do the investigation, you end up firing in the end. It's like, okay, well, at least they did something instead of just like just reacting to the pitchfork mob, as Matt Walsh likes to call them.
I mean, he's not. I mean, yeah. Again, that characterization is not that far off.
Right. And it's
Um,
like for that, and that's why, like, if I was that particular person, I would have told the company when they offered my job back, it's like, you know what, you can shove that job right up your ass. Because how would you ever be able to trust, like that company? They're not going to back you up. Like,
yeah,
you're on your
exactly.
own.
I mean, yeah. What if what if another incident happened? You have that in the back of your mind that that this company does not have my back. They're not gonna go to the mat for me. They're gonna kick they're gonna kick me out of the car while it's still moving.
Exactly. It's like, leave the gun, take the cannoli. That's kind of the that's what happens with like that's why I was said. It's like you can go shove your job right up your ass and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a really topsy turvy kind of world that we live in now, where anyone who claims like victimhood or some kind of uh, grievance, they are automatically taken at their word, and then the person uh, who is accused of such things is thrown on the bus, or condemned as a leper.
Well, and the other thing too, it incentivizes more people like these guys or gals that do this stuff to do it more because they
Right, yeah.
know that
And then
they
yeah,
can
and then
just
it just
cry
muddies the water.
racism or sexism or whatever ism that they want to be that day, and they know that a lot of these companies are just gonna they have
Yeah,
no
they're gonna
spine.
fold.
They'll just fold under any sort of pressure.
Yeah, they'll fold faster than Superman on Laundry Day.
Exactly.
And that's and there's your Simpsons reference for the episode.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
Oh boy.
but yeah, I mean, like all these cries, of bigotry, of sexism, of prejudice or whatever. It's not doing anything. It's just muddying the waters even more. So now we
Yeah.
can't even now we won't now whenever there is an actual genuine case of it, we're not going to take seriously, or we're just going to be like, yeah, sure, whatever, because we've heard it all before. It's the boy who cried wolf. It's
Well, it was the I think it was like Ann Coulter that said this is like once you get like that side to yell that you're a racist or one of these other ists, it's like you've already won the argument because they have no way to they have no real argument to their point. And that's I think it was Ann Coulter that said that. It's like yeah, it's the
well, I'm sure a lot of people say it, but yeah, but like crying out racist, sexist, xenophobe or whatever. That's just that's the coward's last resort. Because they literally have nothing left, or they don't have any legitimate thing to throw at the other person. So they have to throw some. Basically have to throw a nuke.
exactly. It's just yeah, 99% of the time it's complete horseshit.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Like,
I mean,
I don't know if
like
this.
there is that like occasional like real like racist. So it's like wow, people like you still exist. It's like it's kind of
Right. But then think about like what you just said there, and it's like how many times have you actually said like, wow, it's like that was a real case of racism or sexism or whatever.
yeah, it's very rare.
It's so rare that it's like it's only
like,
inflated by all these false claims.
Right. I mean, they think of like there's this like cartoonish villain that like shouts out the N word and like wants to kill all the Jews. They that person really doesn't necessarily exist, at least not in that form. And if you really think about it, the left is the one that's actually like is the they cry wolf all the time. They project that onto people like us, and it's like, you know what? I think you doth protest too much, and that maybe you're the one that's actually like has this bigotry and hatred that you profess that everyone else has.
Oh no, 100% that they do, because they always have to, they always point it out. So, it's like that thing. It's like, you seeing racism or whatever in something says more about you than it does about me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would like to think I would like to think that I, came up with a pretty good counter to like that whole, racist nuke. And it's just, I just say, okay, prove it.
Yeah. It's like,
I mean, it's
okay,
like, give me,
so
like,
you
yeah,
tell
it's like,
me
just ask
exactly
for,
what I
yeah.
did that's
Here's the thing, because, they'll never be able to do it. Because you ask for concrete examples. You go, it's like,
yeah.
oh, you're a racist. It was like, okay, we'll prove it. Tell me when I was a racist.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing when people, they cry all these things about like the president, like how he's doing all these things. Like, okay, what policy did he create that created this problem?
Oh, right,
Silence.
exactly.
There's
Yeah, I
nothing.
mean, he's only been president for 2 years.
Yeah.
So what? And I don't remember him ever. I don't remember him passing any laws or any laws going through Congress and then getting his signature on. So he hasn't created
Yeah.
any laws. So what exact legislation that he created do you have a problem with, or what legislation can you point to that he specifically created? And they can't, because again, he's only been president for 2 years, and he's had a mostly obstructionist Congress.
Yeah. It's not a real thing.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous, and I feel so terribly for that girl. And you know what? The thing is, she's probably on the left too. That's the thing.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but that would. It's like the Starbucks.
It would not
The
surprise
Starbucks
me.
girl too. She was all. She was
was
all
a lefty.
about inclusivity and using proper gender pronouns and all that stuff. And yet they still went after her. They still labeled her a racist.
Yeah. It just
I mean, yeah,
that's why it's like that. It's this insatiable appetite on that side of the aisle that
because they're cannibalistic.
Yeah,
that's what it is. They're just cannibals. That's all it is.
You can never be satiated on that side of the aisle.
Exactly.
Oh boy, it's stuff like that just riles my blood up. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's people say that there's like a right wing or like a, alt-right problem or a white nationalist problem.
There isn't.
But like exactly, but like when was the last time that someone you went to a party and you met all these different people? One's like a vegan, one's like a lesbian, one's a non-binary unicorn, and then you get and then you get to the white guys like, yeah, I'm a white nationalist. I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan. You hear the term record scratch. That would be where the record scratch would happen. Because either like people would leave, or that guy would leave, because no one outright admits that they're a white nationalist or a white or a KKK member or whatever.
Yeah, it's because a lot of those people don't exist. That's the other. Exactly. That's the reason why.
I mean, what everyone a few years ago there was like that Ku Klux Klan rally in Orange County, and there was like all but like 300 people that showed up to that thing.
Yeah, it's not much.
Yeah, that's not. And I mean, I only remember it because like they started getting the ever-loving shit kicked out of them, and I remember having to kind of stick up for the Klansmen because they weren't doing anything. They were they had the permits. They they were just exercising their freedom of speech. And then
right. See, that's the other thing too. It's like if they're not inciting violence, then
yeah, they weren't inciting violence at all. They weren't saying like, oh, let's kill the niggers or whatever.
Yeah, right.
They weren't they were just asserting that their supremacy over all the other ethnicities. And last time I checked, that's not violence. I mean, I know the left constantly conflates language with violence, but really it's not. Because there's a simple litmus test. Just go up to one of them and be like, "You want my words? Or you want my fist?"
I think I'll take words.
Exactly. Because then they're forced to what's the word I'm looking for? Then they're forced to admit the reality of that words are not violence, or words aren't physical violence.
Yeah,
And to conflate the two is just retarded.
Getting very intense.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your job interview. How'd that go?
Oh yeah. Speaking of never being employed ever again.
It's gonna happen, Andy.
Yeah. I don't know, like the way I'm talking on this podcast, whoever, if an employer ever looks, really look for it, I'd never be hired.
Oh, sorry, Andy. Yeah, we can't deal with this hate speech.
I know, like if an employer really looked hard and found this, I'm never being hired in this country ever again.
You're gonna be a Michael Knowles, so it's like, yeah, I'm never gonna get hired in this town again.
Exactly. Exactly. But anyways, yeah. So today I went on a job interview for a company. Funny enough, I interviewed with them like a year and a half ago. But I saw that they were looking for a photographer, and so I applied, and they got back to me fairly quickly and scheduled an interview for me. Oh, I heard back from them yesterday, and so they wanted to set up an interview and for today, and so I had the interview today, really early at 9 o'clock in the morning. On a Tuesday, because everyone knows, and that Tuesdays are the worst days for traffic because most people have Mondays off, and so it took me well over an hour and a half to get down there because it was in downtown LA, within the fashion district, and that took. I'll never get those 2 hours back, essentially.
We never do, Andy. We never do.
And so I went. I interviewed. They let me know the details of the position. It would be full time. It's only offering this much right now. It would be, and I thought, initially, I mean, it's kind of on me because I guess I didn't read the posting close enough, but. It wasn't just for like a regular old grunt. It was someone to see, like they were looking for a head photographer. So someone to essentially run the department, but but not that. I mean, because like the pay isn't great, to be honest. Like, especially if someone like is supposed to be the head photographer. And it'll be like I'd be more if I get the position, I'd be more like operationally I'd be in charge, but not necessarily. I'm sorry, not I wouldn't be in charge of the department. I'd just be more operationally I'd be in charge.
Right. Okay.
And so at this
you'd be
point,
like the assistant to the manager.
Right, like they'd be like the department, like the head of the photography department, and then it'd be me, essentially. And so they asked me if I was good with the rate for pay. I was like yes, and they asked me like do I have any like studio experience, and I said Yes, not a great deal, but yes. Um, I just I try to I try to present myself as best I could and to as confidently as I could. And so now I'm just waiting to hear back. If I do hear back from them at all.
Right. Well, we're crossing our fingers, and yeah, we'll see. We'll support you either way, Andy.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean,
No, I think I've asked this before on the live stream, but and probably on the podcast too. But you must get asked a ton about your condition, right? Like, is that like essentially every interview?
I mean, at interview. Well, here's the thing: they don't directly come out and ask me about my hand. Um, it's more or less kind of like, oh, do you think you can handle the physicality of the position? Because like today, like specifically, the interviewer asked if how would I feel about tearing down and and setting up sets and lights. It basically asking about my hands without really asking about my hands. And I just said like, yeah, I do this freelance. I have my own like home studio, and and I work I work for myself, or I work by myself. I hardly ever have an assistant, so
Help.
I'm the one who's always setting up lights and taking them down and putting up backdrops and taking them down, and so I let them know. I was like, yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So they ask without asking, essentially.
yeah.
Uh,
But I mean, you get like the occasional people who are like like just kind of like, what's the how's this gonna work? Kind of right. Do you get those too?
Not as much as you think. I think people are just just polite, and they just ask me about like that. That's the question, and I know,
The
that I know.
physicality.
Yeah, it's just like go like, oh, can you handle the physicality of the work? That the job demands, and that's like their polite way of asking me about my hands without asking me about my hands, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Right. Right. I was always curious because I know that like it has to be like a factor in these interviews. So
Yeah, no, I
at least as
mean,
far as like at least as far as questioning goes, I mean, I mean, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, of course they'd be curious.
right. But I'd much rather than just like ask me straight up. Like this job is very demanding. Do you like and like I know because of your hands. Do you think you'd be able to handle it? I would much
Right.
rather they just ask me like that. Because like just don't be a fucking pussy and just ask me.
Okay. But you're not like mad that like they ask about that, right?
No, I
Like,
mean
are you like
because
you're not offended by it or anything?
not offended as not so much offended as I am curious to to know if how many other other applicants do they ask that question, or
True.
like as I because every interview is different, so like I wonder like how many other people that particular question comes up to. Sometimes sometimes it might not come up at all, but I'm just more curious to know like how many other people get asked that question. You know.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not faulting the question because it's a legitimate question because working in photography, especially in a studio setting, you are handling a lot of heavy things, and there is a physicality to working in photography, and so I understand that's a legitimate question. I'm just curious to know like how often is it asked of other applicants.
Yeah, definitely, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so I guess we'll
Yeah. Although
get in.
I was pretty proud of myself because I remember to ask this one question, and I think it's a pretty good one because I learned it from what is it? Uh, I learned it from a video that I saw about doing job interviews and such, and uh, in the video the host or whatever he said that this one question like you should always ask the employer because it'll kind of like get their mind in the right you know it's a way of getting their mind to consider you in a way that they don't know that they're considering you. And the question is imagine that you hired me and then a year goes by. It's like what would I have to have done to make you come to me at the end of the year and say I'm glad I hired you.
That is a good question.
Yeah, and so basically, yeah, and then it gets them to just say like, oh, all the things that they really want out of a candidate, and then it more or less worked because they're
right
because at the end of it, when I asked that question, they said like, oh, someone who's dedicated and is a team player and yada 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 yada. And so I basically I got like exactly what they want from someone in that position.
Yeah, that's I think that's a good question to ask because then, yeah, kind of like it's like, all right, let's cut through all the bullshit and like, what do you actually want?
Yeah, but it also like that setup question or that setup statement. It's like imagine you hired me. So they have to take a minute and imagine that
like
a scenario where I'm working there, and then and then I take it to and then it takes you to it's like something it's like it's called I don't know exactly, but it's a kind of conditioning. You kind of like setting up somebody. It's like okay, imagine you hired me. All right, yeah, I hired you. It's like now imagine I worked there for a year. So like Christmas party, New Year's party, St. Patrick's Day, and and at the end of that year, I did such a great job. You were compelled to tell me, I'm glad I hired you.
Yeah.
And so it's like already setting, it's already setting up good kind of like feelings, about me.
Yeah, there you go. And see, there's some tips for our unemployed friends out there
that
are looking for jobs too.
So yeah, it's a bit of a Jedi mind trick.
Exactly.
It's like you will hire me.
Yeah, this is the person you're looking for.
Yes, so I am the candidate you're looking for. Now you will give me the good parking spot.
Exactly.
But there's a bunch of different. I mean, yeah, I've been pretty much asked every interview question known to man because I've been on so many of them.
You have been through the gauntlet, my friend.
I have. I don't know. At a certain point, I just wanted to I just want to be like, screw it, and and just be like, I'm done. I'm done trying to work for the man. But then I get like that's my monthly statement from my for my student loans. I was like, God damn it!
Like God, yeah. Okay, Andy, it's gonna happen. We believe in you.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should do a vlog about job interviewing.
Oh yeah.
I don't get the job, but I'm experienced.
Have a subset on the on our channel.
Career advice. Career advice with the unemployed from the unemployed.
Honestly though, I think that wouldn't be a bad idea though, because a lot of people that are in jobs, they're not going out on interviews. They don't know what's going on in that arena today, and I think you've been through it all, so you kind of know.
That's true.
So like what you've kind of made the mistakes. You know what to say, what not to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
like
probably get
one.
Eric to help you out with that too. Like, have him come on and share some of his advice.
Oh, Eric Nam. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one free piece of advice I'll give you is don't let your potential employer know you have a side hustle.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I applied to this paper company. Um,
Thunder Mifflin.
Dunder Mifflin. I knew. Yes, I applied to this paper company, and on my resume, they saw that because my resume says I'm a freelance photographer, and so they asked me, how many hours a week I put into it. I was like, well, at first I tried to, assuage them and say, hey, all the, my gigs only happen during the weekend, so during the week, I'm able to fully commit to you guys. It's like, yeah, but you're effectively, but then they countered with, yeah, but you're effectively a small business. You run a small business, so like, how many hours, during the week do you like work on that? And that's when I shot myself in the foot because I was like thinking about it, and I just said like this really high number, like a number where like it would make me ineffectual at that job.
Right.
Yeah. And as soon as I said that, and as soon as I said that number, I was like, damn it, I'm not gonna get this job.
Yep.
So yeah, don't let your potential employer know you have a side hustle.
Absolutely.
And that's your free advice from the unemployed.
We'll work for money.
Yeah, we'll work for. Yeah, that's why we put that title in. It's like, we'll work for money. I will work for money.
All right. Well, should we move on into the movie review and wrap this bitch up?
Abso-friggin-lutely. All right, so yeah, this week we're finishing up our Veterans Day, Veterans Month, really, theme of war movies with We Were Soldiers, starring Mel Gibson, who
All
portrayed.
right. We have a Mel Gibson sandwich this month.
That's true. Yes, that's right. Because we watched Patriot in the beginning, and now we're ending with We Were Soldiers, both starring Mel Gibson. And so, yes, We Were Soldiers, starring Mel Gibson, who portrays Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore. He was an army officer who kind of helped revamp the cavalry within the army. No longer using horses, but using helicopters to transport men in and out of the battlefield. And he led one of the first actions within the Vietnam War when basically we took it over from the French.
That was when that was like when it first actually became the Vietnam War, I believe.
Right. Yeah, because I think
before we were just helping out the Vietnamese as far as like training troops and such, and helping them to combat against the communists.
Right.
And it wasn't until about that time that the movie takes place, is right about like when it was it became a war.
Right. Yeah, and I think even
because we started coming to Vietnam in, I think, 1959.
Yeah. Way earlier than people would
realize.
Think. Yeah, realize. And I think even colloquially, God, tongue twisters. Before it wasn't just known as the Vietnam conflict.
Right.
Because we weren't actually engaged with them, but as soon as what is it? The North started saying that they're or like the leadership of Vietnam started saying like, oh yeah, I think we're gonna give communism a try, and then that's when we have to be like, oh whoa.
Yeah,
and,
it was Yeah, this movie. Well, all the characters are very. Man, it's a huge star-studded cast for one. We got Mel Gibson,
Mm-hmm.
Sam Elliott, John Hamm.
Wait, John Hamm's in this movie?
Yeah, John Hamm's in the movie. A very young John Hamm.
Who did he play?
He was one of the officers that he was training.
Okay, in the beginning.
Yeah, but he was throughout the whole movie.
Oh, okay. I don't remember John Hamm being in this movie.
Yeah, I didn't remember that when I didn't realize that when I first watched it, but going back and seeing it again, I was like, oh, John Hamm's in this film. I didn't know that.
Well, yeah. And there's like a lot of future. There's a lot of future stars too, like Clark Gregg. He was in that. He was in it too.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's funny because like I can't remember all of the roles that I've seen him in, but from this movie into the first Avengers movie, there's like a bit of a pattern where like he unexpectedly dies.
Yep.
Yeah, because like in this movie, he's like him and like one of his buddies are injured, but his buddy is like more injured. He's like, no, you take the spot in the chopper. He's like, yeah, I'll see you on this other side, and then he gets like shot through the heart in the back.
Yep.
And then in Avengers, he gets killed by Loki by getting pig sticked.
Right. Yeah. I personally, I would say my personal favorite character in this. I love Sam Elliott's character.
It's yeah.
There's a point where the battle is not going very well, and Mel Gibson's character, he was talking with Sam Elliott's character and saying, it's like, I wonder what was going through Custer's mind, when in The Last Stand, he's like, sir, Custer was a fucking pussy. Pussy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Sam Elliott plays like the grizzled, veteran,
World War II vet.
Yeah, World War II vet, Korean vet. He had, he had four combat, because Sam Elliott's character and Mel Gibson's character are both paratroopers, and so like if you're able to do 3 combat jumps, you get like stars on your jump wings, and Sam Elliott's character did 4 jumps.
Yeah.
4 combat jumps, so he was like he's like in really rarefied air, and so like his kind of like toughness is kind of understood because he did 4 combat jumps, and he's fought in 2 wars.
Yeah,
up until that point,
refused to use the M16. He's like, it's a fucking piece of plastic. I mean,
yeah, it feels like a BB gun.
Oh,
yeah, and it's funny, just like the interaction that he has with like some of his subordinates, like another he's a sergeant major, which means he's like that's like the highest rank an enlisted person can achieve in the army. But like they have like him and one of his subordinates, like another sergeant. They're like they cross paths, and then like the younger one is always like trying to start get on good terms with them or whatever. So it's like, oh, good. It's like, good morning, Sergeant Major. It's like what's so fucking good about it?
Yeah. It's like, what are you, a fucking weatherman?
Oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah, and the other exchange is like, oh, beautiful weather. It's like, beautiful day. It's like, how do you know what kind of fucking day it is, you weatherman? Or... But yeah. But yeah, it's just like So Mel Gibson's character, the actual real person of Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, he's tasked with revamping the cavalry and coming up with all these new tactics, to use in conjunction with the latest technology, which is the helicopter, the Huey helicopter, and and so like I'm a sucker for training montages, and so like there's a training montage, and he's also like learning about the enemy, the Vietnamese, and just like there's like all these parallel to they kind of keep making these parallels to Custer, and funny enough, just
He's
before there's
he's a history guy, so
right,
he
yeah, he's a
studied
history
history of
guy,
battle warfare.
right. And interestingly enough, like just before that, just before they get deployed, the army, cuts his men to like about a third, and they renumber his unit to the Seventh Cavalry. And for anyone who's up on history or specifically American history knows that the Seventh Cavalry was Custer's cavalry.
Yeah,
And he was and kind of similar, kind of like foreshadowing or the what's to come. Custer was massacred because he had low numbers. Um,
yeah,
and
and
kind
I
of like
think
what they were about to face with against the North Vietnamese.
yeah. And and overall, like I really liked Hal Moore, like the way Mel Gibson portrayed that character. He was very thoughtful. Kind of we've talked about this where he's I don't know what it is, but Mel Gibson tends to play in these like war films that he's in. He tends to play the family guy, the religious family guy, that is very thoughtful, calculated. Um, and has studied the history of warfare, and it was just very interesting. And so he was thinking like, oh crap, like now I'm the Seventh Cavalry, like and we're going into a place where we don't know the terrain, we're outnumbered, and it's very possible that we're not going to make it out of this. And it's the whole movie is kind of ends up in this like it's this one battle, this one part of the conflict, and they are nearly wiped out, but it's through just sheer like smarts and willpower that they were able to make it through.
Right. Yeah. It was just like complete like they like willed the victory to happen. Um, and what'd you think of Barry Pepper's character, the journalist?
I liked him as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I because I think he was trying to do like he had his lineages. He has a lot of soldiers that in his family line, and he says like they all fought for this country, and it's like now like I still want to do the same thing, but I also want to understand maybe why wars happen, and I want to be able to capture on film like what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
and he ended up getting dragged into the fight anyways. But I think
Right.
he also, so he saw it kind of in a unique way, the conflict in a unique way, where he was fighting alongside these guys, yet he also um, was capturing the footage. And I think,
Right. I thought it was a pretty interesting.
because technically he was the one that was narrating the film.
Right. Right. Yeah, he
This was
was.
his story that he was writing.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was like, and like, he even gets tasked by Colonel Moore to like, oh, tell our story. Tell this. Tell what. Tell the people what these men did here.
Yeah, because he had
And
no idea. It's like he's like, what do I do? What do we do now?
yeah.
And the he's like, well, tell our story. Tell these
Right.
people's story that we lost today.
Right. Yeah. Because
Tell the sacrifice that they made.
right. Because it's all because that initial battle. Is a bit of a Pyrex victory, because we lost so many men that it might as well have been a loss. But we were only, the Americans were only able to prevail because of superior technology.
Right.
And so, like, and then even the North Vietnamese colonel, the one leading the attack against them, you
Who
know,
was also a very wise person too. He
yes,
was a very skilled tactician.
right. Even he came out, after like they had left and like they were collecting their dead. He was saying like, oh, they're gonna consider this a victory, even though they lost so much.
Right.
And so I thought that was really interesting. And I
Yeah.
think,
The
but going back to Barry Pepper's character, the journalist, when the sergeant major gives him a rifle and some ammo, and he's like, oh, I'm a non-combatant, and then he was like,
God, today you aren't.
yeah, there's no such thing today, and he kind of he puts down his camera, and then he's forced to engage in combat, and it takes a toll on him. Because there's like that
Yes,
point where
doesn't
he's
it?
like firing the rifle, and he realizes this isn't why I'm here. And then he kind of turned around, like there's his camera like hanging off a tree limb, and he puts down his rifle, and he grabs his camera and starts taking pictures. And I think as much like chaos and turmoil he was going through, I think that was the moment you know he finally understood war, like to a point where like he could start like documenting it again, like really documenting it, and not just
Right.
hey, like ain't this, like initially,
He wasn't some
when he got
casual
there, he
observer
was
anymore.
making friends and like snapping pictures of soldiers like kind of smiling or whatever.
Right.
But like now, after he's held the rifle, he's fired, he's killed some people. I think he was able to really document it, the war as it should be documented, not just like these heroic young men fighting, but just like the death and the suffering that goes with war.
Yeah, it's like because he was no longer just a casual observer. He was
Right.
now like he understood it. I think because that was his goal. It's like I want to understand why this stuff happens, and I think by being in it and being kind of a part of that conflict or in that battle, I think he learned about like what the sacrifice that it takes, and it's yeah. I think it taught him what he was looking for.
Right. Yeah, because he might have been in it, but he wasn't in it.
Right.
And that experience just gave him the insight for him. Like even though he admits like he doesn't know how to tell the story, but I think at a very deep level when when he put down the rifle and picked up the camera again, I think at a very deep unconscious level he knew he knew how to document it. But then
Right.
to like when asked that to tell the story, he's like, I don't know how. It's like, well, and then he was like, and then Mel Gibson's character was like, well, you have to find a way.
Yeah. I think the other thing that is important to note as well is that this movie also showed the battle at home as well,
Right.
because
Right.
it's
Particularly with like
obviously
the
like
wives.
right, and because I mean obviously like yeah the soldiers are involved, they're the ones in a battle and are potentially losing their life, but it does take a toll on the home front. All these guys are sons, brothers, husbands,
Fathers.
fathers, and um, yeah, it definitely takes a toll on the families back home, especially when they do lose someone in the battle.
Right. And I think, yeah, you know, what was it? When they start, when the army sent taxi drivers to deliver the telegrams, letting the wives know that their husbands had died,
Right,
and um, the wife to Colonel Moore, she took it upon herself to go and notify all the wives. And she
right,
she even says like, oh, the army wasn't ready. That's why that's why they didn't send a chaplain or a counselor with these emails, because
Right,
they weren't
right,
ready. They weren't expecting the 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 casualties to be as high as they were.
right. And so it's, and kind of like it's a little bit of a duo because Colonel Moore was leading all those men in battle, and his wife was kind of leading the home front in
Right.
a
Yeah.
sense, and caring for all the soldiers' wives and taking care of them.
Hmm.
So you kind of like see that the dynamic between
Right. Yeah.
him
And
and his wife.
there was like a complementarianism going on there.
Exactly. I think that was something else that's also very important to note about the movie because it wasn't just like, oh yeah, this is his wife, and so on. There was a point to showing that.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't like she wasn't just at home like worrying over everything, but she took the steps to like organize them like initially, and and make sure everyone was taken care of. They had that little exchange. They had that little get together, and they're talking about like, okay, like where do we go for shopping? Where do we go for food? If the base supermarket doesn't have certain things, and they're just like kind of like networking
Right.
and that kind of thing.
When I think of this movie, because I remember watching this when it first came out in theaters back in, I think it was like, what, '02 is when this movie came out?
About, yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching this first thing in theaters, and it's a rough movie. But now
Hmm.
it's like, what, it's, years have, like 16 years have passed, and I'm rewatching it again, and I see it in a little bit of a different light, but it's a tough movie. It's kind of like when we were talking about the Gosnell movie. It's like, good really isn't the right way to describe it because I mean it's a impactful film.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I still had those same feelings that I did 16 years ago about the movie, where it's just like it's not a happy story. It's but it is I think it's a good story to tell, and it's just
Hmm.
it
Or
doesn't
it's an important story to tell.
right, and it's like in one sense, yeah, Colonel Moore is comes back to his family, and that's good, but you still feel like it's not a happy ending
Right.
because
Yeah. Because like like most of his men died. You
yeah,
know.
because even Colonel Moore would say it's like I have to face the fact every day that these men died following my instructions and my training.
Right. Yeah.
And,
So yeah,
and
like yeah, he's like yeah when he was talking to Barry Pepper's character, and he's like, oh, I have to live with it the rest of my life that my men died and I didn't.
right, and
And
so you're kind of left like he's home and he's happy to be home,
mhm,
but it's not a happy ending. It's
right.
not
Yeah. It's
it's
not like
it's kind
yeah.
of it's a rough ending.
Right. Because most of his men came
And
back in like body bags with flags draped over them.
he did fulfill his promise. He brought everyone back.
That's
Just
true.
whether dead or alive, he brought them back. But
Mhm.
it's just so yeah, good's not the way I would describe it. I don't even know if there is a word to really describe that type of like movie. Yeah, it's what would you give as a rating, Andy, or if you have any other thoughts to share about the film?
Um. Well, for my rating, I give it a 3.5.
All right.
Yeah, I give it a 3.5. Because again, this is a rough movie to watch. This isn't a rah like you know, let's punch a gook in the face kind of movie.
Yeah. This
It's
isn't like woo America. It's like
yeah,
kind of like you
yeah.
feel
Even though
in like
you
Saving
do
Private Ryan, you kind of feel that like yeah,
yeah punch a
we're kicking
Nazi.
ass. Yeah.
But this one's just like yeah. I mean, it's like you're great. You feel a sense of gratitude for like the men who who fought, you know, and for the ones and then also died. But it's just like yeah, it's not that same kind of American spirit uh, where you just where you're just like clapping along.
Right. And I think too, because our another friend of the podcast is our friend Daryl, who we had
Hmm.
on talking about his liver transplant. He's a Vietnam veteran, and I remember him. You know, he doesn't share very much about it. He occasionally he does share some stories, but
Hmm.
he said that like when he came home, just the way that these guys were treated, which is horrible.
Hmm.
He you know with a lot of shame put his uniform away and never looked at it again for a long time.
Uh,
And not only because of the things that he witnessed in the war, but how they were treated when they got back. They were not treated with very much respect.
right.
Yet they
Yeah,
sacrificed
and
so much.
yeah, and that was another thing that at the end of the movie, the narration from Barry Pepper um, said like these men came home, but they weren't greeted with parades or fanfare. And
Yeah,
then like you see like one of the veterans from that battle. He comes back with like a bandage over his eye and things like that. And, he's being wheeled
he's in a
out by
wheelchair.
yeah in a wheelchair, and then like he's being wheeled through an airport. And it's like yeah, there's no big fanfare, there's no marching bands. And then like there's like this family walking by, and the little girl she like kind of reaches out towards towards him, and then like the mother like pulls her back. Kind of yeah, it's like kind of understanding like oh this war isn't something that you know you shouldn't necessarily feel like pride in.
And which is a shame because we helped prevent the spread of communism through a good majority of Southeast Asia, which
Mm-hmm.
would have destroyed a lot of other people's lives. I mean, that's essentially because we really like we there were everyone talks like oh the America, they're the colonialists and like they just want to like take over and have this empire, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
we had no skin in that battle. We had no
Right, we had
reason
no
to
skin
be
in the
there,
game.
but we were defending the liberty and free, the liberty and freedom for countries to choose for themselves um, how to govern themselves. And it's
And
like where communism
like
kind of
with
just
as much
overtakes.
freedom as possible. It's basically what we
Right.
want. Like it doesn't. You don't have to do like a copy paste of the United States, but we want you to have as much as many freedoms as you can as you can get like us.
And
That.
through that, we helped stop the spread of communism in a big way. But it just, which, let's be honest, communism is terrible. It has killed hundreds and hundreds of millions of people uh, throughout its history.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, the Vietnam War was bloody. There were definitely errors that were made.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that despite all that, I think we also prevented a lot of death in doing it, but they get no respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because everyone like says like, oh, America is like this great empire. We're trying to colonize and and take over countries or whatever. It's like, well, I always point them to, or I would always point them to, Korea and Vietnam. It's like, why were we there? You know, why were we there?
Right.
Korea is not, known for, Korea is not known for its abundant natural resources. Neither is Vietnam. So
Right.
why were we there? Because
We
you
had no
say that
skin in the
we're
game.
you say we were in the Middle East for the oil. It's like fine, fair enough. Because they actually have like they actually have a resource that we're somewhat interested in. Even though nowadays, domestically we're producing more oil than we've had like since the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
But yeah, so like I'll give you the Middle East. But why the hell were we in Korea? Why the hell were we in Vietnam?
South Korea would not exist without our help.
Exactly. You know, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here if if the Americans didn't if America didn't come in and poke its nose in.
Yeah.
Because there was a time when the North did did control like even Seoul for a
Right.
time.
Yes. Right. Because the communists had pushed really far down into Korea.
Yeah.
And
they damn near
we pushed them
conquered the
back.
entire peninsula.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the United States, if it wasn't for Douglas MacArthur, who a lot of Koreans they venerate him like he's like almost like Jesus.
And
they freaking love that guy.
And in the Philippines too.
Yeah. So Koreans, Koreans have a very great fondness for America and specifically General MacArthur.
Yeah. I shall return.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, so I would say like my rating for the movie is probably gonna be the same, about 3.5. And I'm just not a happy movie. Don't look for the super happy ending in all of it, but I do think it is a movie that is worth watching, and I'm kind of glad to be able to go back and see it again through kind of in a more of an analytical way of watching it. And it was I think a good way to end the our Veterans Month. And but yeah, make sure to the veterans that are around you, go and give them a thanks, shake their hand. If you can help out veterans charities, there's some really good ones out there for guys and gals that that could use the help. And yeah, it was a good month.
Yeah, it was. Man, buy him a beer.
Oh, absolutely.
Buy him a beer. All right. Well, that's all for you, Robert. I guess we could close out.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. That was our episode for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday night around 8-ish p.m. We're trying to get better. We really are. I promise. We'll someday we'll actually start on time. To see if we ever make good on our promise, you have to stay tuned. Don't forget to check out the library of other great shows that we have. Not just this show, but the main podcast and also Robert's show, Up by Up Down. If you're into classic, 8-bit graphic games. Don't forget
the main show. We've been pumping out some really great content, and we got a lot of great stuff coming up too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So don't forget to check out all of the things. Check out all of the things. Don't forget to follow us on our various social medias: Twitter @PodcastCOJ and Instagram @Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with that, we say goodnight to you, and we'll see you next week.
We gone.
He gone.